The internet is ablaze as shocking reports emerge from the Harris household, where whispers from behind hospital doors have sparked fears about the fate of King Harris, the young star once known for his bold personality and headline-making lifestyle. Social media is flooded with speculation, with fans praying and critics pointing fingers, as family members gather in tense silence around his hospital bed. Insiders suggest that this crisis did not come out of nowhere but had been building for months, with reports of secret hospital visits and mounting pressure behind the scenes. King Harris was never just another celebrity kid. He was the one who constantly challenged expectations, lived in the spotlight, and carried the weight of both admiration and criticism. His public meltdowns, fiery social media presence, and unpredictable behavior made him a lightning rod for attention. But beneath the surface, insiders now claim he was also struggling with exhaustion, pressure, and the demands of an unforgiving industry. Fans recall the moment he stormed off stage during a show, dismissed at the time as arrogance, but now seen as a cry for help. Rumors swirl that his health has suffered from extreme stress, and some reports even suggest he may have turned to unhealthy coping methods to keep up with expectations. The Harris family, trying to protect their brand, allegedly kept his true condition private until it could no longer be hidden, and now the world waits for answers. Online platforms are filled with trending hashtags, fan-made tributes, and viral clips of past performances, painting a picture of both love and heartbreak. One video of a young girl crying while clutching his photo has captured millions of views, showing just how much he means to his supporters. Meanwhile, critics argue that his current state reflects years of living recklessly, while others point to the crushing pressures of fame and family legacy as the real culprit. As the family holds vigil by his side, the media frenzy grows, with bloggers and tabloids circling for the final update. What makes this moment even more haunting is the uncertainty surrounding the doctor's report, with whispers of difficult decisions ahead and questions about whether recovery is possible. At its core, this isn't just about a medical emergency. It's about the cost of fame, the silence that follows unspoken pain, and the legacy of a young man who once commanded crowds but now lies surrounded by hushed voices and worried faces. Whether King Harris pulls through or not, this moment has forced fans, family, and the industry to confront the reality of what relentless pressure can do to someone so young, reminding everyone that behind the headlines, scandals, and fame, there is still a human being whose struggle may be his loudest message of all. The story of King Harris has become a storm that refuses to calm, shaking both his family and the public who once saw him as a rising figure carrying the Harris name into a new age, even if that age was full of chaos and noise rather than quiet stability. And now the whispers surrounding his condition have grown into a roar that is impossible to ignore, with witnesses saying T.I. hasn't left the hospital for days, pacing halls with restless energy, while Tiny has been seen overwhelmed with grief. Mascara streaked and ignoring flashing cameras she once faced with practiced ease, and siblings posting cryptic messages asking for prayers while clinging to faith. But beyond the tears of family, there is the tidal wave of online speculation that refuses to stop, because to the world this isn't only about King, it's about every young star swallowed by fame, chewed up by pressures, and left behind when the lights turn off. And insiders keep hinting that his situation is not just about health, that it might be linked to something deeper the family doesn't want exposed, with words like money issues, secret dealings, and hidden recordings floating through encrypted chats, making people wonder whether the farewell to King Harris could end not in quiet mourning but in scandal that changes everything the public thought they knew about the Harris dynasty. And when whispers reach this pitch, they rarely remain whispers, because the so-called final report about him, though not yet public, is already rumored to be explosive, with alleged hospital records circulating that suggest details beyond stress or natural breakdown, claiming his body showed traces of unregulated substances connected to private suppliers tied to underground networks, whispers of money laundering, distribution, and shadowy funding that fueled lifestyles under the table. And King's name allegedly appearing in these documents makes the story spiral even faster, because people look at his life of lavish cars, glittering jewelry, and wild parties before he even hit his prime and ask whether it was really funded by his father's wealth or something else entirely. And insiders claim the family may have known about the questionable streams but chose not to question, as long as the image looked glamorous, which, if true, makes the situation not only tragic but dangerous for the entire family brand, because investigators may start asking where the money really came from and how deeply others were involved. And social media has already gone wild with viral clips and TikToks claiming to have screenshots of ledgers and coded payment trails, with users debating whether they are real or fake but millions still watching, one comment bluntly saying they were never royalty but hustlers in crowns. And adding to the chill are reports that doctors warned the family weeks earlier that if King didn't change his habits his body might not hold, warnings allegedly documented in notes signed by specialists, which means the family cannot say they were blindsided because the cautions were written and yet ignored. So now while T.I. paces outside and Tiny wipes tears inside, lawyers are said to be scrambling because if reports point to negligence or worse, a cover-up, then emotional pain could turn into legal storms with lawsuits, federal investigations, and headlines declaring the Harris name under fire. And the fanbase is split, with some angry that he was sacrificed for the brand while others plead for sympathy, saying the family is already in agony, but damage has been done because the myth of invincibility is shattered. And then another layer is added as a former associate claims there is a private recording of King from the night before he collapsed, where he allegedly expressed fear, saying he felt betrayed, saying he thought he was being set up. And if that audio ever surfaces, it would change the narrative from health tragedy to conspiracy, because that would imply not just collapse but intention, someone silencing him, which raises questions about what secrets he may have held, whether about industry corruption or family dealings. And the internet has already exploded with hashtags and theories, fans acting like detectives analyzing his last Instagram caption, saying people think they know him but don't, and calling it chilling in hindsight, while hospital insiders describe chaos behind the scenes with arguments, grief, and guilt heavy in the air, suggesting the family knows more than they let on. And if investigators begin to trace contracts, accounts, and transactions, the fallout could mean tax probes, fraud accusations, and charges that destroy dynasties rather than just reputations. But rumors swirl that the final report, being prepared by doctors, won't only include medical notes. It may detail a day-by-day timeline of his decline with warnings ignored, making it clear this wasn't sudden but preventable, which would make it impossible for the family to spin. And the million-dollar question is whether the family releases the report first to own the story or hides it, hoping leaks don't spread, though the internet always digs and whispers suggest parts are already leaking, with early screenshots allegedly hitting platforms and comments turning furious, accusing them of valuing wealth over well-being. And legal circles are stirring, with anonymous lawyers hinting at negligence claims and federal probes into financial practices, suggesting this story is only beginning, because as the report is finalized, the hospital itself feels like a battleground where doctors triple-check every note, knowing once it is public there is no turning back. And insiders say drafts already mention suspicious links, suppliers, and even suggestions that those close to King influenced his lifestyle in ways that worsened his state, which, if true, places not only outsiders but loved ones under scrutiny. And fans are unforgiving, calling this not grief but greed, with the polished image of celebrity royalty collapsing in front of millions. And as legal forces stir, the idea of Harris dynasty investigations no longer sounds like wild gossip but a looming possibility, with rumors of negligence lawsuits, financial misconduct, and even potential federal attention making headlines inevitable. And through all of this, the public is divided, with one side demanding accountability and the other side begging to let the family mourn. Yet the momentum of the internet does not slow, and speculation only grows louder as people sense that this story is more than health, more than tragedy. It is a tangled web of lifestyle, choices, secrets, and the cost of building an empire on unstable ground. And if the alleged recording, the financial leaks, and the medical warnings all align, then the final goodbye to King Harris won't just close his chapter but could unravel the legacy his family spent decades constructing. Because in the end, whispers don't stay hidden, leaks don't stay buried, and truth, whether scandalous or heartbreaking, always finds its way into the light, leaving the Harris name at a crossroads between mourning a loved one and facing the collapse of everything they once built. The saga of King Harris has turned from whispers into a worldwide storm. And what began as heartbreaking news of a young man's tragic decline has now exploded into one of the most sensational scandals in celebrity history, because the Harris family's carefully crafted image is cracking before our very eyes, with footage of T.I. pacing hospital corridors and Tiny breaking down already viral. Each tear and glance dissected by both fans and critics, while their lavish lifestyle, private jets, luxury cars, extravagant gifts, is now scrutinized under suspicion, sparking fierce debates about whether these were genuine acts of love or distractions from darker truths. And fueling the chaos are anonymous calls to media outlets claiming private recordings exist in which King allegedly voiced fears about hidden contracts and questionable deals tied to those closest to him, recordings that insiders say multiple outlets are fighting for, suggesting the shift from personal tragedy to conspiracy is inevitable. And public reaction has been nothing short of explosive, with hashtags like #HarrisExposed and #JusticeForKing trending globally. Fan pages once filled with birthday wishes now transformed into investigation hubs. Reddit forums filled with users piecing together dates, parties, and meetings like detectives. while memes comparing the Harris family to reality show dynasties spiral across TikTok and Instagram, turning grief into viral entertainment. But beneath the noise lies the chilling reality that fragments of the so-called final report have already leaked, describing ignored medical advice, financial irregularities, and unusual supplier activity, with analysts warning that it implies not just negligence but deliberate neglect. And suddenly the questions are no longer about whether King could be saved but whether his well-being was sacrificed for the sake of an empire, with legal experts speculating on subpoenas, asset freezes, and corporate fallout as every business tie, music rights, sponsorships, and brand collaborations comes under intense review. And fans are relentless, staging protests, signing petitions, and even holding candlelight vigils outside the hospital, chanting for truth and justice, actions that flood timelines with powerful imagery impossible to ignore. Yet inside the Harris household the strain is equally devastating, with insiders describing clashes between family members, old grudges resurfacing, and reports of hush money or secret settlements only intensifying suspicion, while spin doctors and PR teams work around the clock to contain a narrative spiraling out of control. Though in an age of social media, every defensive statement is dissected and ridiculed, making control nearly impossible. And as leaks continue, blogs and independent outlets allege that the scandal might escalate into multi-agency probes, with names like the FBI and IRS whispered in connection, and anonymous sources claiming that if the financial inconsistencies line up with negligence, this could redefine accountability for celebrity families forever, marking a shift larger than gossip or headlines, because it speaks to power, secrecy, and the price of ignoring red flags. And then comes the tipping point when a former associate claims that King's collapse was at least partly preventable, that medical warnings were ignored. And had they been taken seriously, he might still be alive, possibly stained legacy, and the public waits impatiently to see which road they choose, knowing that whatever happens will be dissected, dramatized, and remembered as one of the biggest cautionary tales of fame in modern history. Because make no mistake, King Harris's goodbye has already changed everything, transforming from a moment of grief into a global saga that highlights the risks of unchecked power, the dangers of secrecy, and the heavy price of ignoring truth. And now fans, critics, and authorities are united in a single demand: answers, accountability, and the exposure of what really happened behind the glittering facade of the Harris empire. Because while King Harris may be gone, the echoes of his story are destined to shape conversations about celebrity culture, family power, and hidden scandals for years to come.